Alright, well, welcome. Thanks for being here, guys, in this second instalment of the Goal Achievement Program. I think this is a really important session, and you know, we're 3 months into the program. We're 3 months since we did the first workshop where you set some outcomes for the year and set some exciting outcomes, and now we're 3 months in. Now, some people will have already made a lot of progress and will be on track. Some people will have intended to make a lot of progress and will not be on track. And some people just didn't care at the start anyway, but they're probably not in this room again. So, this is really aimed at, you know, both the people who are on track, but also the people who started out with the best of intentions and it fell off. Because, you know, isn't that often the case? You know, people, you know, I think one of the biggest waste of time is New Year's resolutions. I mean, they just don't, people don't seem to make them work because they don't have the sort of the background or they don't build the framework to make sure that they do work. So what I want to talk about today is something I call fanatical balance, and I think this is a really, really important way of actually making sure that you start out with good intentions and then you continue with those good intentions and you actually make some serious progress. I was being interviewed yesterday for by a marketer, and you know, he asked me, because he said, you know, one of the things I see in you, because I used to work with him, is one of the reasons you've been so successful is because you just implement things and you get things, you know, you work on things and you get them done. And we started out with them 6 months into the business, and we did this coaching program. And you know, we did, it was a 6-month coaching program, and everything we learned, we implemented, and we had it done. You know, for example, the original locum, you know, the booklet that we did for the definitive guide for locuming, wrote it, had it printed, and was distributing it to doctors within 6 days of the idea. So we were just implementing quickly. And he said, so what's the difference? Well, that is the difference, but what is it actually that makes you do that? What does it make you take that action? Because everyone has that intention. Everyone wants to do something. Everyone sees an opportunity that's going to move them towards what they want. And then a lot of people don't then take that next bit of action. And I thought about that a lot. And you know, it comes down to mindset, but it comes down to what I think are 3 really important things. Let's just see if we can make this work. So let's do that. So, and they're what I call the foundations of success. And I've shared different foundations in the past, but what I think that these are, I think these are the core foundations that underpin everything. And the reason that I want to share them today is because one of them in particular feeds into, very specifically, what this fanatical balance idea. Just going to see if my little projector thingy can get working, otherwise it's going to be a bit more admin. No. Alright. So, the first foundation of success, I believe, is purpose. You know, people, where I figured these out is studying people's lives, people who are alive now, studying people's biographies, people who have been great in the past, and looking at what's the common thread that, you know, flows amongst them. But the first thing is purpose. And purpose to me is why we want to matter. Purpose to me is how we're going to actually make a difference, how we're going to contribute, the legacy that we're going to leave, I should say. And I think the idea behind purpose is that we've got to remember that the world does not exist to provide for us. The market doesn't exist to provide for MedRecruit. You know, we exist to provide for the world. And when you contribute to the world, when you add value, then the world will come back to you, you know, tenfold. But you know, I've got a real belief in business that, you know, the money will follow the value. So if you're focusing on adding value, then the money will come. So purpose, I think, is the most important thing, and it's really the reason I think that most people who are successful, and this is not just on a grand scale, this is people who are successful in their life, they're clear on purpose. Now, we did a session looking at this, where we looked at, you know, those 3 questions, you know, what do I want to experience, how do I want to grow, and how do I want to contribute? And I think purpose is found within that, but that's not really what I want to talk about today. I just want to touch base on it because I think it's really critical. The next foundation of success, I believe, is passion. You know, passion is the energy. Passion is the juice that people bring. And you know, when you see people who are really successful in different areas of their life, they're passionate about that, aren't they? People are not that successful if they're lackluster or just kind of, yeah, I'm hot and cold, you know, lukewarm about something. They're passionate. And I think passion This is where passion is an attitude, but passion is also a way of living, and it's a framework of living. It's not just an outcome, it's not just an emotion that we can passively feel. I think passion is found as much in what we say no to as what we say yes to. Because I think where passion gets destroyed is in when people are saying yes to the unimportant in their lives and no to the important. So for example, if your life gets caught up with television and Facebook and just meaningless catch-ups or whatever, and because you're doing that, you're not making progress in the areas that are important in your life, then you're just going to naturally have not a lot of passion in your life because you're caught up in doing unimportant things, and there's no passion found in the unimportant. No one is passionate about getting home and watching television, getting home and getting onto Facebook. It's like, here you get on, you do it, and you kill time, don't you? So passion is lost when you're killing time. And what I want to talk about today, which I call fanatical balance, and this is how you can actually hone that goal achievement process even further, is where it feeds directly into passion and directly into saying yes to the important and no to the unimportant. Now, when you're living on purpose and you're living with passion, the third one becomes a lot easier. And that third one is living with presence. Presence is where you bring your entire self to the moment. There is no future, there is no past, there is only the moment. The moment is all we can actually directly affect right now. As an entrepreneur, I got caught very much up in living in the future. And everything was always, it's all about goal setting, goal achievement, things in the future. And then by the time you actually get there, you've set on to the next thing, and you're missing out on the moment. And I sort of identified this a couple of years ago and realised that I was becoming even less and less effective in the moment. I was enjoying the moment a lot less because I was so much focused on the future. Some people have the opposite problem where they focus on the past too much. So, but if you're focused on one or the other too much and not actually living in the present, then you fail to bring your entire self to that present moment. Now, there's a couple of things you can do to increase that presence, but again, that's not what we're going to talk about today. What I want to talk about today, really, is, as I said, it's called fanatical balance. And as you'll see on this thing, one of the foundations of success is not balance. I think that balance is incredibly overrated, but passion is definitely there, and that's what we're going to focus on today, is going to feed directly into that. So, asking the question, to live an excellent life, to live a life where you're doing what you're meant to be doing, do you want to be living a life with passion or with balance? It's a question. What would it be?
Passion.
There's more energy in passion than balance, isn't there? Definitely. Who's heard the saying, everything in moderation? I'm not going to ask who thinks it's a good saying, because I think it's one of the stupidest possible sayings around. Everything in moderation. Like, really? About stealing? About killing people? About heroin? I mean, it's a stupid thing. There's a lot of things that are not good for you and don't actually move your life in a good direction. Everything in moderation is I think, one of the singlest, stupidest bits of advice you can follow. I think moderation, to what most people focus on, means a bit of everything, which means nothing excellent, which means mediocrity. And there's no passion found in mediocrity. There's no passion found in playing small. There's no passion and excitement found in a little bit of everything. And I'm spending a bit of time on Facebook, a bit of time on this, I'm picking on Facebook. But you know what I mean? There's no passion found in mediocrity, a jack of all trades. Balance, I believe, is not the goal. If you strive for balance, you strive for mediocrity. But balance is an outcome when you answer this question. How can I live an extraordinary life where I'm making progress in all the important areas for me? And there's some really important parts to that. So it's living an extraordinary life. So, I mean, who in this room doesn't want to live an extraordinary life? I'm assuming Australia's not raising their hands. Because we all do, don't we? We all want to live life. No one says I'm striving for an ordinary life. You might, if you're in the absolute down in the dumps. Ordinary might be fantastic, but most of us aren't. We want to make progress in the areas that are important for me. So that's a very personal statement, isn't it? No one can tell you what's important. No one can tell you what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing. Only you can answer that question. So this, I think, is a really important distinction, because that leads to the topic of today, which is fanatical balance. And that's why I call it fanatical balance. It's prioritising what's important. It's making progress in the areas that are important, not just playing small in a whole lot of areas. Because as I said at the start, passion is found as much in what you say no to as what you say yes to. Because I believe that every time you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And the problem is when you start saying yes to a lot of unimportant things in your life, because by doing that you're saying no to something else, and by definition that's going to be some of the important stuff. And I think that's where a lot of us can fall into, because it can become so easy, can't it, to say yes to the unimportant things. And your time gets caught up with something or whatever. You meant to go to the gym, but someone happened to pop in for a catch-up and you didn't feel like you wanted to say, look, I'm actually going to the gym. So you stayed and you caught up with them, or you got caught up on Facebook and you didn't actually do your goal-setting thing that you were going to do, or whatever. But we can get caught up in the minutiae. And that just leads us, to a life of mediocrity. So, a question before we get into this next section that I really would encourage you to actually spend some time reflecting on is, what are you saying yes to? This is after the session. What are you saying yes to that is not moving you in the direction you want to go to? So what is that ultimately? What are you saying yes to that's costing you your dreams? Because that's the reality. And I think when we put it that way, it can become very easy to say no to the unimportant things. Saying no to something can feel like you're paying a price or something, can't you? It's like, oh, I've got to put off doing that because I've got to do this that's going to help my life. But the reality is, when you come back to those 3 foundations of success, when you know what your purpose is, when you've figured out what it is how you're trying to contribute, the legacy you want to leave, how you want to matter, then it can become really easy to say no to the unimportant things, because you're focusing on things that you know that are moving you, that are exciting you. And so things like saying no to a catch-up that wasn't going to get you anywhere, or a Facebook or TV or whatever, they don't become sacrifices anymore. They just become, they're unimportant. But the key is that you've got to get focused on what's important. And so what I want to do now is help develop a framework with you so you can say yes to the important and no to the unimportant. And I think that it's a very simple framework, because I found a lot of personal development things can be so complicated. So I've had to actually peel it right back and create frameworks that work for me. And this one I think is a really simple one. Does anyone have any questions at this stage up to what we're talking about? Or anyone want clarity around anything? I'll go to you first, Australia.
No.
No? Okay, under control. Anyone here got any clarity required? Okay, it's pretty simple really, isn't it? It's pretty much just saying, if I want to live an extraordinary life, I've got to say yes to the right stuff and do the right stuff in my life and not do the wrong stuff. It's pretty basic, but most of us still get caught up, and I still do too as well. You can still definitely get sidetracked. So what I've looked at is, I think there are 7 areas of your life. Now, these 7 areas, you may think of some other ones as well. To me, I thought this was quite a good list that covered most of the important stuff. So finance is definitely one. Business and career, fun and experience, health and fitness, relationships, personal growth and contribution. Now you could add spirituality, include that in some of the other ones. But whatever list works for you, and I think that's the important thing here, because this is about creating a life for you. So what I'd encourage you to do is, we're going to work on this list today, but if you think of other areas that are important for you, then please add them in, write them in. And if you think some of those aren't important for creating an extraordinary life, then remove them. This is entirely your choice. But the key here, this is the really important bit, because this list will set the targets for you in your life. So if you get the list right, then you give yourself a massive advantage. Recently we've been doing something with the management team, looking at organising principles. And organising principles are really sort of strategic outcomes for a business with some limitations to them. So achieve something within this limit. And the key was to get those right, because if you get the organising principle right, then everything else flows from that. That is the sharp end of the stick. So essentially, this is the sharp end of the stick. So you want to make sure you get this list right to start with. We're going to work with this today, but as I said, remove what you don't think is important, add what you do think is important, because this is critical. Because what we can now do is, once we have this list sorted, then it's possible to go, okay, let's set some outcomes in each of the areas and make sure I'm moving towards what I want to achieve in the important areas of my life. So, before we do that though, I just want to go recap on something we covered 3 months ago, which is, how do we set powerful outcomes? How do we set outcomes that move us in a direction that we want to go in. For, essentially, how do we, are all outcomes created equal? And I don't believe that they are. So what we want to do is get the target right, and then we actually want to set the outcomes, which are the specific pinpoints of the target, effectively. So, setting outcomes, there is a way to do it, and a way to do it where you set outcomes that there's much more power, there's much more likelihood that you're going to actually want to act and move towards them. When people ask, again, that interview I did yesterday, why do I take action? It's because I know that it's moving me in a direction. I'm clear on what I really want, and I've done this process. So if I take action towards it, there's no hesitation. So, does anyone remember the 3 questions for the 3 levels of outcome that we set 3 months ago? Remember, there's 3 levels. The first one is where you ask the question, what can I achieve safely? What can I achieve safely? This is within my comfort zone. So what can I achieve within my comfort zone? Little hint, everything you want lies outside your comfort zone, otherwise you'd already have it. Just the reality of it. So if you ask what can I achieve safely, there's very little actual power in that. There's very little that actually makes you want to move towards that. And it's so easy to achieve, but the irony is that they're so easy not to achieve as well, because you're just not juiced about it. Like, who here has, said that, I need to get a new set of shoelaces or a new button, and for something, something just so easy and so uninspiring.
I need to sew my button back on my shorts, and I still haven't done it.
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it's the easiest thing. It would take like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But who's done that? You just never get it done. And that's what I can achieve safely. I mean, anyone can go and sew a button on. The next level is a bit more power. So it's what would I like to achieve. There's a bit more juice in this one. There's a bit let yourself dream, but don't let yourself dream too much. And you're moving towards something, but the problem is anytime you move towards something, you're moving away from something else. That something else is your comfort zone, that something else is your peer group. And both of those things have a massive pull. Both of those things want to pull you back in. The quality of our lives is a direct reflection of the expectations of our peer groups. So if we have a peer group that has lower expectations for us, and we set a little goal that I'd like to achieve something, but your peer group pulls you right back in, it's very easy to get pulled back in. So what would I like to achieve doesn't get us a whole lot further. The question to ask if you want to set a powerful goal, don't set goals anymore, just ask yourself this question, what would excite me? Forget about setting outcomes, just ask what would excite me. This is the realm of dreaming. This is the realm where you let yourself go there. This is the realm where you let yourself go way outside your comfort zone. You don't put limits on how big you want to dream. And you create some targets that absolutely juice the heck out of you. And I think I shared this last time. This is why I believe some people achieve so much compared to everyone else, because they just ask themselves this simple question, what would excite me? And the reason is, when you ask a question, what would excite me, say you're here and here's your comfort zone, here's what can I achieve safely, here's what would I like to achieve, here's what would excite me, here's your comfort zone. It's way outside, so it's exponentially bigger thing to achieve, but because you've actually got tapped into your true power, the source of your real energy and your passion, what would excite me, you're much, much more likely to achieve it. This is why people change the world. This is why people change their lives. This is how people, just create and just keep stacking success on success on success. They just ask a simple question, what would excite me? So we're going to go through that, but I just wanted to retouch on this because this is so important. So when we go through this next process, we're not going to think about setting outcomes. We're just going to ask ourselves the question, what would excite me? And when you do that and don't filter it, you're going to get some powerful answers. Now there are 2 classes of outcome as well, aren't there? Who remembers what those 2 classes are? There's goals and standards. So a goal is something that we want if it's convenient. It's a sort of a semantic thing, but you got a goal. I'm going for the goal. I gave it my best, but that's. I think gave it my best is a cop out for didn't actually do what I needed to do. Standards, on the other hand, are must. Standards are non-negotiable. A standard, you don't say I gave it my best. A standard, you said I did whatever I had to do and I applied absolute pig-headed determination and I got there. A standard says, you know, you get knocked back 3 or 4 times, you keep going until you get the answer you want. A standard says, this is a must, this is a non-negotiable in my life. You know, if you had a goal, I gave that example, didn't I? If you had a goal, I've got a goal not to beat Claire. I mean, that's weak, isn't it? I've got a goal not to beat my wife. It's a standard. You know, I mean, it's a standard. It's the difference between, you know, I'll die for my girls, I'll die for Claire, Zara and Florence because nothing in my world is more important. It's completely different from, I got a goal that I'm going to treat them as best I can. I mean, it's weak, isn't it? Goals are weak, but goals are okay in the things that aren't important. If it's not important in your life, it's cool to set a goal. And I've shared that as well. I want a Lamborghini, it's a goal, but it's not a standard. So I'm not that fussed about it. But then building the house for my family, that was a standard. For a house out in the country, so we're doing that. So it's really important when we go through this. And the difference is the why. The difference between a standard and a goal is why it's important to you, why it's a must, why it's non-negotiable. So does anyone have any questions about this part before we go into the actual process for today? Australia, anything from you guys?
No.
No? Okay, we're good. So let's do it. So what do we want to do? This doesn't have to be a long session today because there's going to definitely be some homework. So what we're going to do is go through each of these 7 areas, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And no, we're not even going to go 5 minutes. We're going to go 2 minutes, and we'll see how we're going at that point. Because what I want you to do is just answer the first thing that comes to your mind. So before you start writing, just remember, you're not setting outcomes here, you're asking what would excite me. Just answer the question. First 2 things that come to mind for each of these categories, what would excite me? I'm going to start my clock now. Everyone should have pen and paper. What would excite me? What would excite me financially? Oh, what do I want to achieve? What would excite me? What would excite me in my career? Just write the first 2 things that come to mind. What experiences would excite me? What would excite me in the health and fitness realm?
Some of you have better put down the mule, okay?
Yeah, the mule. We want to dominate the mule.
Yeah.
There's a few here that need to put down the marathon.
What would excite me in my relationship? That's a good one. What would excite you? There's no passion found in what would I like to achieve safely in my relationship. What would excite me? What would excite me? How would I like to grow? What would excite me in the personal growth? What sort of contribution would I get excited about? You know, what would excite me is what would maybe get me out of bed early and go to bed late. Not because I have to, because there's not enough time for sleeping.
What do you mean by contributions? Not like charity or volunteering?
Making a difference, yeah. However, whatever your definition of it. Yeah, my definition is, you know, giving back.
Oh yeah.
And what's your definition for personal growth? Because like for me, all of the stuff above it is
Sure,
personal
could be
growth.
about learning. How do I want to grow? What do I, you know.
Yeah.
These, it's not. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what my
Yeah.
definition is.
Yeah.
Is probably the best answer.
Yeah.
What's your definition?
Yeah.
So I think it's something outside work. Something entirely that is for you.
What feeds into this stuff?
Which is your core. That's fine.
Yeah.
But whatever your definition of it is. So that's 2.5 minutes. How are people going? Who's got 2 things for each of those, or who hasn't got 2 things? Anyone in Australia haven't got 2 things? Everyone got something in Australia?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So, have a look at that list. Now, it's a different process, isn't it, from just saying, okay, what do I want to achieve? or what are the outcomes I want to get, or whatever. When you look at that list, you know, cast your eye over it and tell me, are you genuinely excited by what you've written down? Who looks at that list and goes, man, that's actually, some of those things are quite a long way from where I am now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Probably a lot of them, aren't they? Because the thing is, if you're genuinely honest, what would excite me is probably outside your comfort zone. So, does anyone have anything they wrote down there? They haven't, particularly I'm interested in something that you haven't necessarily written when you've set goals or anything in the past, but has anyone got anything that came out of this that's new?
Yeah.
Anna, what have you got?
Oh, it's personal, but it's something that is definitely out of my comfort zone, and it is a stretch target.
Alright, cool.
But it's down.
Okay, cool. Who's got something that they can share?
Sorry, I didn't realise I could share it.
that they haven't actually set as an outcome before? Anyone in Australia? No? No one's got anything they want to share. That's okay. So, here's the thing. You've got 2 things in each of those. What I want you to do now is just have a look through that list and circle 2 or 3 things. So what we would do, to do the whole process, you'd write more than a couple of things. So what I'm going to encourage you to do after this, or tonight or whenever, is go away and actually ask what would excite me. Set a couple of minutes for each of those categories. And just write a whole lot of things. Then the next step is to go through and go, okay, what's a must now? What is a standard for me? So if you have a look at that list, and I want you to circle, you may circle all of them, you may circle 1 in each category, but just go through it and say, okay, what's a must? Not how am I going to achieve it, forget about that, but what is a must? And by that is, what is a must for me to actually live an extraordinary life? That's the key. If I want to live an extraordinary life, unbelievable life, what would be a must? So just go through there and circle those things that are musts. Just give you 30 seconds or so. Remember, don't filter. This is not how am I going to achieve it. This is not what's a must because it's pretty easy for me to achieve. This is what's a must if I'm just genuinely honest, saying I'm going to live an awesome life. This is a must for me to do it. Alright, so you've been through that now. Now what you're going to do after this, and I'll email this out afterwards, is do the why. Now remember, the why is what takes something from being a goal to being a standard. The why is what, when the why is strong enough, the how will always reveal itself. If you've got a strong enough why, you will get the result. If your life depended on it, you'd get that result. So what I want you to do after this is go away and write down why those musts are important. What's it going to mean for you if you do achieve it, or when you do achieve it? But also, equally, what's it going to cost you if you don't achieve it? What's it going to cost you in terms of how you feel about yourself? What's it going to cost your family? What's the reality of if you just kid yourself and say this is okay, but it's not okay? So this is really, really important. And then the key is go, okay, how am I going to achieve that? Because all this is great, and just doing this without taking action is the beginning of delusion. So what am I actually going to do? What are some concrete steps that I can take to move myself in the direction of these outcomes that would genuinely excite me? And I remember I shared with you a really simple way of doing that is to say, take the big outcome and go, what are 7 things I need to do to achieve that? And then go, what are 7 things to achieve each of those 7 things? So you end up with 49 little things you can just start ticking off. And I would encourage you, and I would also say to you, that there are going to be some people here who get a lot out of the session, and there are some who get very little. And I hallucinate that the ones who get a lot out of this will be the ones who take some action today. That do not leave the site, or do not leave today having written down some of the stuff, and they take the momentum and they do something about it. It might be a tiny thing, it might be a single phone call, it might be an email, it might be whatever, but they'll start the process and they'll start taking action. Some will go, yeah, that's good, I'll do it next week, and you won't do it next week. And we'll be back 3 months and you go, yeah, I was one of the ones who started out with good intentions. The ones who have the good intentions and then do something about it will honestly take action pretty quickly. And then, protect the time. Remember what you say yes to and what you say no to. This is now the really important thing. If you've gone through this process and you set the areas of your life that are important, and you answer what would excite me, and you create the why, you create your driving force, then you create a plan. And the plan doesn't have to be perfect. The plan can be very imperfect, but at least it's a plan. You're going to start taking action. You're going to say, is it getting me closer or moving me further away? If it's moving you further away, change the plan. If it's getting you closer, do more of it. But then protect your time. Make sure that you actually, I'd encourage you to plan your weeks. So make sure that you're actually setting time to move you in the direction that's important, and your time isn't just getting eaten up in the unimportant things. Because you're going to get to the end of this year, and the end of the year is going to arrive. Whether you've achieved a lot or not is entirely up to you. Whether your time's been spent on Facebook or spent achieving, whatever it is that really excites you is up to you. And because it's outside our comfort zone, isn't it? We ask that question, what would excite me? There's some fear. It's way, way easier to go and bury ourselves in Facebook or TV or whatever, or distraction. It's so much easier. But the problem is you get to the end of the year and a little bit of you's died because you gave up what was really important. It takes a lot more courage just to actually lean into it and go, this is really important. This would excite the heck out of me, and just start taking action. And as I said, I would encourage you to take some action today, because if you do, you'll move the needle. You'll get momentum. If you don't, then we'll be having the same conversation in 3 months. And then the final, this is, as I said, this is just finish this process in your own time. We've only just started it, and we don't necessarily have time to do this whole process ourselves. But if you're interested, if you see merit in it, then finish it. If you don't see merit in it, then don't do it. But if you see merit in it and then you don't do it, then you've done yourself a real disservice. So that's the key, is just take some action. Because this is really about, a life well lived. Remember, balance isn't the aim. Living on purpose is. So living a life where you're moving in the direction that's important to you. That's the important thing. If you're doing that, hey, there's going to be distractions as well. Of course you're going to get, some of that sort of stuff. But it's not going to be at the expense of the important stuff. Do you want to get 5 years down the track and go, man, my Facebook profile is phenomenal. I've been posting. I've been posting 3 times a day. I know exactly what happened on the latest Celebrity Big Brother. I am on top of the house, mates. Don't you worry about that. But there's not a lot of juice in my relationship. I'm struggling financially, and I'm a slob. Or would you rather get to 5 years' time and go, Facebook's looking a bit lean, isn't it? Got no idea what happened on Celebrity Big Brother, but I'm in this unbelievable relationship. I'm in phenomenal physical shape, financially secure. We've got the house we want, whatever it is. The difference is only one thing between those two people. It's what they said yes to and what they said no to. It's as simple as that. Your life is a direct reflection. It's a direct reflection of a lot of things. I often say your life is a direct reflection of this, that, and the other. But your life is a direct reflection of what you say yes to and what you say no to. Where you are right now is a reflection of the decisions you made in the past. So where you go is a direct reflection of the decisions you make today. The decisions you make every moment, because we make those decisions every moment. We choose how we show up every moment. We choose the energy and the passion that we bring to any moment. And we choose the frameworks that we live our life in, whether that framework is actually moving us in all the important areas or not. We've made that choice. By commission or omission, we've made that choice. So be really cognizant of that, because balance then becomes irrelevant. Balance just doesn't become an issue, because you're enjoying your life. You're just living life, and you're living life in a way that's really meaningful to you. And I think that's the key thing. It's the outcome that you want. Create excellence in what's important, not mediocrity in everything. That's kind of the summary of today. If you do that, then you're not going to create excellence in the unimportant things, because no one can create excellence in everything. But what you can do is create excellence in the areas that are meaningful to you, And that's what's going to get you to the end of this year and go, man, that was a year well spent. That's what's going to get you in 5 years' time to go, man, I'm on track. Compared to, man, I wish I would have, I could have. You know, you don't want to be sitting there saying that sort of stuff to yourself. So it's really, really simple. Now, I just want to see if anyone's got any questions about this at this point. Anyone in Australia got any questions? No. What I would say though is if you did that session we did that session 3 months ago, and you've made great progress, then congratulate yourself. Look at how you can actually improve this process, utilize this framework, and move yourself forward. If you've made a little bit of progress, then pat yourself on the back. Give yourself some credit for that, but also don't give yourself too much credit, because if there's room for improvement, then take it. If you haven't made any progress, if you set out with great intentions, don't beat yourself up over it, but also don't let yourself off lightly. Don't sit there with wallow and guilt and feeling bad and could have done this, could have done that. It's fine, but just don't get yourself slack on it either. I think successful people, they don't wallow in the past, but they do learn from it. And you can still say I fucked up, but I'm gonna make it right now. But they don't just sit there and wallow and go, oh, I messed up. They don't do that. But don't cut yourself too much slack either, because that's across the board. I've seen in successful people is they cut themselves enough slack, but they don't cut themselves too much. Too much slack just means in 3 months you're having the same conversation. Then you need to give yourself a kick up the arse then. So what I'd encourage you is wherever you are right now is exactly where you need to be to apply this framework right now. And then I promise you, if you do that, you'll start to make some real progress in the important areas, and you'll get to the end of the year. And again, it won't be perfect, but it'll certainly be a heck of a lot better than where it is at this particular moment in time. So I want to leave you with the final quote, which is probably pretty predictable given the topic of today. Balance is overrated, and I really think it is. Balance as a goal or as it is overrated. Balance becomes an outcome of living life on purpose. So, thank you for your time. The fact that you're here today shows me that you are the people who are committed to personal mastery. How much progress you've made is a reflection on the action that you took or didn't take, but that's cool. How much progress you make from here on is a reflection of the decisions you make today, the actions you take today, and what you choose to say yes to now and over the coming months, and what you choose to say no to. So I'd encourage you to be really cognizant of that, and anytime you find yourself in a situation, just ask yourself, am I saying yes to what's important? And if the answer is no, then great, catch yourself and move yourself off, back on track. It's not about beating ourselves up, it's about actually just course correction. When you take off in a plane and you travel from Auckland to Los Angeles, it's off course like 99.99% of the time. It's course correction that keeps it back on track and you end up in the right place. So this is not about being on course the whole time, it's about course correction, getting yourself back on track. So, thank you for your time. Thank you, Australia. I really appreciate your time, and we are just going to finish this up, and then we've got an announcement to make. So, thank you. I encourage you to take action on this. Remember, the people who get the most out of this will take some action today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now,